Hey there everybody, and welcome to what I am self-titling Sick Lion Pride does a tutorial she is horribly underqualified for. Today I'm going to be doing a basic shading tutorial. I am sick, I think it's a cold, but a friend of mine requested a little help because I do some basic shading and she wants to understand how I do it. And so this is going to be my best attempt to help, but I feel like I should say ahead of time, I am not an artist. Basically, everything that I know about art, I either got from my younger brother, who is an artist, link to his DeviantArt in the description. Please check him out because I love him, and there's my family plug. But the other thing is, I took a storyboard class, which was like, I mean, it's storyboard, it's not art, so little bit of shading stuff there, but not really. And anyways, I'm gonna give it my best shot, but I feel like I should clear up ahead of time. This is not definitive, this is self-taught, and if an actual artist tells you don't do this, they're probably right. So, here we go, we're gonna start. I've got two different pictures here of the same person. This is Frisk-chan from the Ask Delta Cara Tumblr blog, which I really enjoy and do a lot of fan art for, and actually have a parody in the works for. But basically the premise of the Ask Delta Cara blog is, gross oversimplification here, one of the Caras from Undertale, you know, the multiverse, ended up becoming good after getting mixed up with the other souls, and now she travels the multiverse. It's a lot of fun, and this particular character comes from one of her trips to Yandere Simulator themed Undertale AU. So this is Frisk-chan, and she will be our person for the day. You can see that I've got two drawings here. I've got one with color and one without, and I will be explaining why in a bit, but let's start with the one with color and start figuring out how to deal with this beautiful Frisk right here. So, first, number one, before you do anything else, thing about shading is you need to know where your light source is coming from. You can tell in this video here that my light source is above me because I've got my shadow down here, and my light source is also over that way because we've got a shadow coming over this way. So first things first is, where is your light source? For me, I put my light source right up here. This scratched out bit is where I tried to put an arrow and the arrow didn't work, so I just put a little light here. But basically, the light source is coming from the upper left-hand corner and possibly just slightly to the front, but we're gonna say it's coming directly from the side of the character. Now, the thing when it comes to doing any kind of shading is, the rule of thumb is, if it's harder for the light to reach that part of your character, it's gonna be darker. So, like on Frisk, if we imagine her as a 3D girl instead of this, then we know if we do this, this side is going to be very light. This side has to go through the entire rest of the hair in order to get any light, so I'm actually going to use the black pencil, not my graphite one, but this side is going to be darker. We know that down here is going to be darker than up here because down here is going to be, stuff's going to get in the way of it. And like I said, almost anything on this side is going to be a little bit darker. This part here, you can see, would be basically reachable. And in a real life lighting scenario where it's not like a spotlight, it's more like sunlight, that would probably be relatively easy to reach. So we're not gonna bother with that there. This part here is gonna be lighter. Now the thing is, here we've got it as a flat object, but in reality it's kind of a curve. You know, it's rounded like my soda bottle, you know? So if I had a light shining from this side, which I don't, but just bear with me here, if I had a light shining on it from this side, then anything past here would be darker, not just anything past the edge. So with that in mind, then anything past around here would also be just a touch darker and be getting progressively darker as you get to the underside of her hair. And that's the thing. There is hard shading, which is when you go basically block off an entire section and make it dark like that. What I'm doing is gradient shading or soft shading, where you start kind of light and you get darker as you get to the other side of the, pardon me, of the object. So that's this side of the hair. This side of the hair is automatically going to be dark on this side. We already established. It's going to be dark here. It's going to be dark here because it's down on the bottom. And this part here because it's on the side. Now this part is going to be darker because we're going to have the head in the way. The head and this part of the hair, but really the head, because if it's diffused enough light, something that far away isn't going to cause much trouble. Like, theoretically, we could put a little darkness here, but this is not a big enough object that it's likely to affect that too terribly much. So most of this is automatically going to be darker because it's farther away from the light source, and there's more blocking it and getting in the way of it. So you're going to end up with slightly darker hair on that side. Similarly, this side of this part of the hair is going to be darker because it's on the far side, but it's going to be more dark down here than it is up at the top, because up at the top you've still got this shining down on it. So I actually made that a little too dark, and I'm going to take away some of the shading there. So this here may be a little, but not really, because it's still kind of not really blocked by anything in particular. But then you get to the face. Now this part of the face here is going to be blocked a little bit from the light because of the bangs. You've got this coming down like that. It's going to hit the bangs. It's not going to hit the area underneath where the face is. So you're going to have just a little bit of darkness down there. You're also going to have a little bit of darkness on the side of the face. This entire side of the face is going to be just a little bit darker because of the fact that it is farther away on a curve than the other side. But the sides of the head are going to be a little darker because you've got the hair in the way. Here's the truth, I'm doing this just a little too dark for my usual taste. I'm sorry, I'm coughing a lot and I'm sick. But it's gonna be, I'm doing it a little darker than I usually do, just so you can see where I'm putting it. Feel free to only put the amount of light, darkness or lightness that appeals to you. Now under here is going to be a little dark because of the chin. Over here is going to be a little dark because it's on the far side of the arm, or of the neck I should say. This is going to be slightly darker because it's on the far side of the arm. And you're going to kind of fade that out probably because it's on that side. You're also going to end up with shading under here and over here because this is the side of the character basically that's going to be farthest from the light. That's really the big thing. If it's farther from the light, or if it's harder for the light to get there, if it were a 3D object, you make it darker. So there's that. This side of the skirt, obviously going to be a little darker. This side of the leg, going to be a little darker. Just like that. Now, this part of the leg is also going to be just a touch darker because you've got the light coming down from here, and the skirt is going to cast a little bit of a shadow there because the skirt is kind of floofed out a little bit. It's a little like your bangs up here, where it's going to cover up that part of the leg just a little bit. The inside of this leg is also probably going to be a little darker because of the fact that you've got this leg in the way and it's such a big thing, plus the fact that it's on the far side. So this leg is probably going to be shaded like that. This leg will probably only have like shading on this side because obviously that's the side farthest away from the light, and then a little bit down here where you've got the skirt shadow. You're gonna have some in here because that's where that is. You're also gonna end up with a little down here because you can't reach it with a line, not easily. Pardon me while I take a drink. Diet Dr. Pepper, please sponsor me. Actually don't, because I use karaokes that I don't think are protected under the whole parody thing, and I think I'd get in trouble. So please don't sponsor me, because then I could get in trouble for copyright infringement. So we're gonna come down here to the shoes really quickly, and I wanna point out one thing. None of these colors are fully saturated. None of these colors are colors where I took my crayon or pencil and pushed really hard. They're lighter. So they're gonna be lighter, less saturated colors, and I find that this makes it a little bit easier when it comes to shading everything. So like with the shoes, this side of the shoe and the bottom part of the shoe is gonna be darker, and you can see it's just a little darker. Same with this one. You're gonna end up with shading on this side of the shoe, though maybe not so much for this part because the sun could actually reach that, or the light source. You're gonna end up with darkness in your creases right here, because they're creases. You're gonna end up with some darkness here, just a little bit. That was not supposed to go all the way over onto the hand, so I apologize for that. But you can see that this part of the arm would be getting in the way of this part of the arm, and farther out, the light will be able to get past it and around and get to it, but right on the inside, it's probably gonna be a little darker where that's gonna be. And obviously, because you've got this whole entire arm in the way, just the tiniest bit of this is gonna be in shade too. And then of course, this side, you're gonna have this part shaded. You're probably gonna have this part shaded because you're gonna have part of her body, a lot of her body, in the way. But because her arm is supposed to be out, it probably isn't gonna be shaded towards the end because this is farther forward than this is. So this would not be blocking the light if it's directly from the side, and you just end up with the darkness on the side like that. And here is the most basic version of the shading for this character if the light source is from over on this side. Now there is one other thing I suggest because I find that it makes it look better. And that is, instead of just shading in black, shade in black mixed with a darker tone of your original color. So like for the hair, instead of doing this light brown with the black on it, I'm gonna take this dark brown and blend it in just a touch so it doesn't look quite so black, basically. And so that it looks more shaded and less like I just took a black crayon to it. So yeah, that's gonna be good. When it comes to like tan faces, I usually use, where is my light brown? I usually use light brown instead of like a pink or a tan because that's just kind of what I like to do, but you do you. So when it comes to how you like it, please do it how you like it. There we go. Then we'll do it on the legs too. And honestly, if I took a little more time with this and wasn't trying to just do a basics tutorial video here, I'd probably blend these out a little more. I'd make them less stark. I'd basically reshade them more or less and make them a little more gradient instead of so stark. Anyways, when it comes to white shirts, and I'm gonna do this while I talk, but when it comes to white shirts or white anything that you want to look finished, one of the things you can do, and I found this out from an old fashion design book, you can use blue instead of white for your shading and wrinkles, or blue instead of gray, I should say. For whatever reason, I really don't know why it works, but it helps to make it look shaded instead of just unfinished. It helps it look more white, even if, excuse me, even if you're not doing proper shading, even if you just want to like add wrinkles or whatever, I advise using blue on white because for whatever reason, it makes it look a little more polished and a little more finished. And then we're just gonna take the blue on this part, take the blue on this part, doop, doop, doop. Put it here. I'm just gonna take my blue shade across this whole entire thing down here, because I could do it blue, purple, blue, purple, blue, purple, but that would be a pain in my butt. And they're so similar in shade that really it doesn't really matter. And like I said, honestly, I would feather this all out a little more. I would make it a little less dark and a little less stark and hard. But you get the concept, and that's what I was going for here. So now you can kind of see how I do what I do when it comes to shading and what I advise for just standard shading. There is one small difference though, and that is number one, if you're doing colored light, or number two, if you have a really harsh light source. And this is where it gets a little different. This is why I colored this differently. Specifically because we have this bright green glowing orb right here. It is the only light source. That's what I was trying to go for here anyways. So right around this light source, very close, is going to be bright, 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 bright green. And I like to do mine in circles because I find that's how light goes around. I don't have my marker. Oh, I left my marker in the other room. Bother. Okay, we're gonna color this in black. I used Sharpie for the rest of it, but I forgot this part, so we're gonna color this in black. See, so you've got it like this. Yeah, and as you get farther and farther away from the light source, it starts to get darker and kind of darker. And you're going to end up with funny shading because you've got, you've got curves and stuff. I mean, this isn't just straight out. So you're going to end up with it darker over here on this side. In fact, you may have it pitch black over here on this side, or darn close. This part of the hair is probably going to be pretty darn dark because it's farther away from the light, and the light is really strong, and there's no other light coming from anywhere else. It's not diffused in any way. So this side of her is definitely going to be really, really, really dark. You're going to end up with the top of her head, the top of her hair being very dark, while the bottom of her hair is lighter and more green because it's closer to the thing. Like I said, some of this you can just swirl it around to a certain point until it starts turning another direction, which her body would, because it's kind of rounded. So this part would start to get dark without much trouble. So, you'll end up with this side over here that's very, very dark. You might end up with hints of green here and there. But the point I'm trying to make with all of this is a different style of lighting. This is for very, very harsh lights. And what will happen is you'll find your light, and then you'll make what is essentially a ring around it. And anything past that ring gets progressively darker. And as it gets darker, it's a dramatic lighting is what I'm trying to say. And I know that this probably doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm really winging it on this one because I haven't done this kind in a while. But if you want a really dramatic look, then this may be how you want to go about it. Because this is dramatic. This is, I mean, you've got a very harsh light in a very dark space. you've got extreme shadows, and it adds a lot of drama to a picture. And so if you're looking to add drama, you may want to consider slightly harder lighting and looking at you know, doing this sort of ring effect where like the edges are dark but the center or wherever is closest to the light source is brighter. I've got, actually, hang on one second, I will show you another picture I did with this. Okay, I found it. This is my other piece of Delta Cara fan art that I was working on, and it was for another project. But you can see that my light source is coming from down here, sort of in the center of everything. And so around the edges, it's darker. Around the hair, it's darker. Around the edges of the face, it's darker. At the edges of her outfit, it's darker. As you get farther away from the light source, it gets progressively darker, and it gets, it's just a really neat effect, and I wanted to show it off since I had the chance. So I guess that's it. Here are the final versions. This is with my usual shading style, with, you know, find where your light source is coming from. Think of it as a 3D object and darken the spots that are farther away from or harder to reach by the light. That sounds really simple. It's not as easy as it sounds, I know, but hopefully that helps you get your mind around it at least. And if you want something more dramatic, try something like one of these where you have a bright light source that gets progressively darker the farther away you get from it. It will make it more dramatic, basically. And this is really good for like if you've got a computer or whatever. It works well with silhouettes. It's just really cool. So hopefully that helps you, my dear friend. Hopefully this has entertained you, all of you people who are realizing just how much I'm not an artist. And I hope you have a blessed day. Bye.